Hello friends, in this video we will discuss on how to become a successful React developer. Before we discuss about how to become a successful React developer, let's understand what full stack technology is and what full stack development is. So, what is full stack development? Full stack development is the process of developing both the front end and back end of web application or any other application. So any application has a front end, that is user facing component, and a back end which includes of database and the server side logic. So every application has a front end component and also a back end component. The back end component comprises of both database and server side logic. The front end contains the user interface and the code related to user interactions with the application. Now, what do we mean by the code related to user interactions with the application? We all might be using a lot of applications like Facebook, YouTube, Netflix, Instagram, etc. Right? So in Instagram, whenever you would like to apply or upload some reels, you are doing an interaction with the application. You would like to upload an image, so you're doing an interaction with the application. In Netflix or in YouTube, you would like to search for some videos, you would like to play videos, you would like to pause videos, you would like to share videos. So all these are nothing but user interactions that we do when we are using these applications. So the user interface, the front end, consists of all the code related to all the user actions that we do on this application. And the backend contains all the code required for the application to run, including integrations with data systems, communicating with other applications and processing data. Now, what does this mean? Now, whenever you upload an image or whenever you upload a reel, what happens is this reel or image in your Instagram is uploaded to your server. The server takes this uploaded video and stores in a database or somewhere else in the backend, and it again pushes back this reel into your front end so that all other users can view this reel or images. For example, even in YouTube or in Netflix, you search for some phrase, okay, search for some video. Now this search phrase is sent to the backend. Based on the search phrase, the backend system searches for the appropriate videos and sends them back to the front end with the appropriate videos. So this work done by the backend system is nothing but processing of the data. Okay. Software developers require slightly different skills, tools, and software knowledge for front end and back end development. However, full stack development combines both disciplines, meaning teams can build applications from start to finish in an integrated and cohesive manner. So a full stack application is a software application that encompasses both front end and back end in a single code base. Okay. So a full stack application is an application where front end and the back end are all in a single code base. Now, full stack consists of front end. So a developer has to build a front end system, that is a user interface for the application, and he has to build a backend system where the front end interacts with the backend and the backend processes the data and stores the data in the database. Okay, and he also has to integrate the backend with the database so that all the data is stored in the database. And there will be few system integrations, like you might be uploading some images and videos to the cloud. So all these third-party integrations need to be done. And what are the front-end technologies? Front-end technologies include HTML, which is used for designing your page layout. For example, every application you see, there is always a navbar, there is a section, and every page is divided into different sections. So all these sections are done using the HTML. And you have CSS to style the page and add some awesome designs to your application, to your page. And JavaScript. JavaScript is for handling user interactivity and interact with server APIs. So whenever you fill some form, you're actually trying to enter some data and share this data to the databases, to this system, backend system. So JavaScript comes into picture whenever you do some interactions with the application. Most popular front-end frameworks. React.js. React.js is the most popular front-end framework which is used by 40% of the developers across the globe. Angular. Angular is used by 17% of the developers across the globe. And Vue.js is used by 15% of the developers across the globe. If you combine these three frameworks, almost 70% of the developers use these three popular frameworks. So these three are the most popular front-end frameworks. Among these, React.js is the most popular framework. Now, let's understand what is React.js. React.js, commonly referred to as React, is an open source JavaScript library for building user interfaces for web and mobile applications. Okay, so this is React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. User interfaces is nothing but all your web application pages. It was developed by Facebook and is maintained by a large community of developers. It is open source, reusable component-based front-end library. So React.js is a front-end library and it is built on the concept of components where the components can be reused. We'll understand and we'll understand the we'll get into detail about what components are later on. React is used to build web pages on the front end, which runs inside the browser. So all the web pages that are built, which runs in the browser, are built using this React.js front-end library. It is through React how your app looks and feels. Means it is React.js which gives you your application the look and feel you want to give it to your customer. Now, what are React components? As I said, React.js is we have seen here, React.js is open source, reusable, component-based front-end library. So we will understand now what these components are. What are React components? In the React world, everything is treated as a component. Okay. Previously, before building using React, web pages were built using HTML elements. Now in React, the mindset of a developer is being completely changed, and in React, everything is treated as a component. For example, in any application, you have a lot of components. A web application page, whichever you build, you have a top nav bar, you have a search bar. And so this nav bar which you build on the top of your application is called a nav bar component in React. You have a search bar for searching, and that is also called as a component. Then you have a hero component, a huge image where some sort of information is provided, and it is called as a hero component. You have a sidebar component. Most of your people, whenever you log into any application, you have a dashboard. And in the dashboard, you have a sidebar where you see a lot of menus. So that sidebar is also called as a component. Review component. You must be giving ratings and reviews to most of the applications, mostly in Book My Show, Make My Trip, ratings for hotels, flight bookings, movies, etc. So all this is nothing but again called as a component. You must be having card component and footer component. All these are common components for most of the applications. And video component, category component, cart component, etc. So in simple, in React.js, everything is called a component. Every part of the page is divided into components. Advantages of component-based approach. React follows a component-based approach. React divides the UI into multiple components. UI in the sense every page of your React application is divided into multiple components. This component-based approach makes the code easier to debug and maintain. This component-based approach makes the component reusable at multiple places inside the app. What does this mean? For example, you have a card component. You want to display a list of movies. Okay. In order to display a list of movies, you just need to build one component to display that movie, and the same movie display component can be used to display multiple movies, thumbnail components. Okay. Similarly, every component can be reused across the application at multiple places. Every component has its own properties, state, and functions. Now, whenever you are building a component is a reusable component. So a component has its own properties, has its own state and also has its own functions. Okay, we'll see later on what property, state, and functions are. Properties are nothing but like it can have some specific height, width, color, etc. State is nothing but it can hold some initial data, initial state. For example, take a cart component. Initially, the state of the cart is empty. And when you add any product to the cart component displays the number of items added to the cart. Now, this state has changed here. Okay. So means every component holds some initial state. Okay. And it also has some functions where this function do some specific tasks. Component-based approach also makes development and maintenance of web applications faster as multiple developers can work simultaneously on different components of the same web application. Means, for example, you want to build a web application and there are 100 components that you need to build this web application. So you can divide these 100 components into different developers and every developer can choose a set of components and work on them till he completes the component. Similarly, all the developers can simultaneously work on building all these 100 components at a time, and thus the web application development becomes faster. Now, why React is so popular these days? There are many reasons why React has become very popular these days. One among them is easy creation of dynamic and complex web applications. Using React.js, you can easily create dynamic and very complex web applications. It provides several performance enhancements through the concepts of virtual DOM and one-way data binding. We will go deeper into the concepts of virtual DOM and one-way data binding in the later slides. React applications are single-page applications. Now, what does the single-page application mean? Single-page applications are nothing but the entire application runs in a single page. Means the routing of navigating from one page to the other page, everything is handled within a single page. React uses reusable components. This reduces the code and development time. As most of the components are reusable across the application, it reduces the code and also the development time of your application building. React follows the principle of unidirectional data flow. That is nothing but one-way data binding. We will see about the benefits of unidirectional data flow in the later slides. Compared to other frameworks like Angular and Vue, React is much easier to learn. And React can be used for mobile applications through React Native. So code reusability and mobile application development becomes faster. Once you build a web application, 70% of the code used in your web application can be reused in React Native to build your mobile application for the same app. React has a large matured ecosystem with popular component libraries like MUI, called as Material UI. This is one of the most popular component library. Then we have AntDesign, Chakra UI, React Bootstrap, Maintain, Hero UI, previously called as Next UI. Now, these component libraries are nothing but they provide us with some inbuilt components, some 50 to hundreds of inbuilt components like navbar component, accordion component, switch component, spinner component, sidebar component, menu component, input box, button, etc. So, some of the most common components used in every web application, these libraries provide us with some inbuilt React components so that our development becomes faster and we can focus more on application building rather than on building new components. Features of React.js. Component-based approach is the first main feature of React.js. That is why React.js has become very popular. JSX. JSX stands for JavaScript Extended HTML. That is nothing but, we'll go more deep into JSX later on, but you can simply say that writing HTML in JavaScript is called as JSX. And it has a virtual DOM. Basically, what virtual DOM is, we will see later on in the later slides. It follows the concept of virtual DOM. It has unidirectional data flow. easy debugging, server-side rendering support, mature React extensions and libraries. Okay. So these are some of the common features and most popular features of React.js. Now let's see what is JSX. JSX, which stands for JavaScript XML, is a syntax extension for JavaScript. It allows developers to write HTML-like markup directly within JavaScript code. As I said, you can write HTML-like markup inside the JavaScript code in the same React.js file. It is primarily used for building user interfaces. All what you see on the web page, okay, everything that you see on the web page is nothing but what is written in the JSX only. And JSX uses this HTML-like markup which get displayed on the browser. JSX helps in making the code easier to understand and debug as it avoids usage of JavaScript DOM structures which are rather complex. So basically, when you write HTML-like markup in JavaScript, it makes it easier for the code to understand and also debug because the HTML part and the JavaScript part are in the same file. So any error or any difficulty arises, it will be very easy to debug because your HTML and JavaScript is within the same code base. Ultimately, JSX is nothing but JavaScript plus HTML. The app's entire HTML and CSS is handled using JSX. So as I said, the popular front-end technologies are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This JSX handles the HTML and CSS part of your web application completely. Now let's see what is virtual DOM. Now, you can see this image here. So your web page is nothing but called as a DOM, document object model. DOM stands for document object model. The web page is built using the DOM. DOM treats each HTML document as a tree structure in which each node is an object representing a part of the document. Okay. For example, here this is HTML, the root element. You have the head element, body element. Then inside the head element, you have the title element. Then you have the text. Then you have attribute. So within the body element, you have href, you have anchor element, you have h1 tag element. Then you have this my link within this, and you have my header within this header tag. Means every element in the DOM is represented in the form of a node in a tree structure. The virtual DOM is React's lightweight version and the exact copy of the real DOM. The browser consists of the real DOM, but React maintains an exact copy of this real DOM called as virtual DOM inside the React memory. So real DOM manipulation is substantially slower than virtual DOM manipulation. What does this mean? Any changes happen in a React application, React makes these changes to the virtual DOM rather than making direct changes to the real DOM in the browser. Okay, means first all the changes are made to the virtual DOM which sits behind this real DOM. Okay, once these changes are made in the virtual DOM, then the virtual DOM applies those changes to the real DOM. When an object state changes, virtual DOM updates that only that object in the real DOM rather than all of them. We will understand this sentence later on in the next slide in detail. When the state of a component changes in a React application, first virtual DOM gets updated, as I told you before. Okay. So if a state of a component changes in the sense any data of a component changes or any changes applied are made to any component in the React application, virtual DOM gets updated because this is the exact copy of the real DOM which is displayed in the browser. It then compares its previous state and then updates only those components in the real DOM instead of updating all the components. Now what does this mean is, now virtual DOM has got updated. What this virtual DOM does is, this virtual DOM compares the real DOM which is running in the browser and checks for any changes have taken place or not. If it identifies that one or two components or one or two nodes have been changed in the virtual DOM, the virtual DOM only makes changes to those nodes in the real DOM instead of making changes to all the nodes in the real DOM. Means the changes are applied only to those components and updated in the real DOM where the changes have been made in the virtual DOM. Instead of updating the entire page and updating all the components, it only updates those components which have got changed. Okay. This makes application perform fast, especially when compared to other front-end technologies that have to update each object, even if a single object changes in the web application. How virtual DOM interacts with the real DOM. If you see, in the left, you have this virtual DOM, okay? And these orange nodes are updated. So whenever changes are made to the component in the React application updates this virtual DOM. So these orange nodes are the updated components in the virtual DOM. Now what virtual DOM does is, it compares with the real DOM if there are any changes made. As virtual DOM is an exact copy of real DOM, virtual DOM understands that two nodes have been updated. So what virtual DOM does is, it only the changed objects get updated in the real DOM. Means whichever objects are updated in virtual DOM, it updates the same information on the real DOM instead of disturbing all the other components. So this is how virtual DOM interacts with the real DOM. What is one-way data binding or unidirectional data flow? React's one-way data binding keeps everything modular and fast. Unidirectional data flow means data flows only in one direction. Now we will understand this slowly later on, but you can understand that in a React application, data flow happens only in one direction, from parent to the child component only. In React, data moves in a single direction from the parent component to child components. As we have seen, document object model is a tree structure where every parent component has got child components and a child component has got further child components. So data flows only from top to bottom, that is in a one direction in a React application. And this happens through the concept called props. Props are nothing but properties of the components. So when a parent component wants to pass on some property to the child component, it passes this via these props. Changes to the state are always initiated in the parent and propagated downward. What does this mean? Is nothing but all the changes are made only in the parent component, okay? And from there, the changes are passed on to the child component. React ensures that data flows downward from parent to child through props. The child component can access the data passed by the parent, but cannot modify it, keeping the flow unidirectional. So the child component can access the data passed by the parent, but cannot modify it, keeping the flow unidirectional. For example, here we have the parent component, and here I have a variable constant called greet, where I am just mentioning this string called hello React. And I am returning a child component in which I am passing this message. This message is called the prop. And I am passing this variable called constant called greet into this. Now, this child component receives this message as a prop and it can display this message. So don't worry about this syntax. What I'm just trying to say is the parent component passes the greet as a prop to the child component, and the child can render the data, means it can only display the data, it can render the data, but it cannot make any modifications or changes to the data which is passed from the parent to the child. Key features of React's unidirectional data flow. Predictable component behavior. Data flows downward, making interactions between components more predictable. Separation of concerns. Parents handle state and logic, while children focus on rendering and presentation. Callback functions for updates. Updates flow upward through callbacks, keeping state changes centralized. Immutability of props. Props are immutable. Immutable in the sense you cannot edit them or you cannot change its value. So preventing accidental modifications in child components. As we said, child components can only render the parent's data passed on from parent to child, but they cannot modify it. This ability or this feature of the child component which cannot modify the data sent from the parent component is called immutability of props. Debugging tools. React developer tools enable tracing state and props, simplifying debugging. React has got excellent and very powerful debugging tools so that we can trace the state and props and simplify our debugging while building our web application. And React also has some third-party libraries for global state accessibility like Redux, okay, and Flux. Libraries like Redux enforce unidirectional flow for global state, ensuring consistency. So Redux, now called as Redux Toolkit, is a library which enforces that the entire application's data is located at one central store and data flows from component to component in a unidirectional way. Okay, so Redux library ensures that the data flow within the entire application happens in a unidirectional flow, only. Advantages of unidirectional data flow. Easier debugging. Since data flows only downward, tracking the source of an issue is simpler. Predictable state. The unidirectional pattern makes state changes predictable and controlled. State changes in the sense, if any data changes, you call it as state changes. Okay. So unidirectional pattern makes state changes predictable and also controllable. Component reusability. Components are more modular and reusable due to clear data ownership. Scalability. Works seamlessly with larger applications and also global state libraries. Performance benefits. Avoids unnecessary re-renders by isolating data updates to specific components. Now, what does this mean? As I said, a UI page consists of hundreds of components, okay? So whenever a component changes, there any data in a component changes, the virtual DOM updates that component data to the real DOM. So here only those components whose data is changed are getting re-rendered to update them with new data. Means unnecessary re-renders of other components are not happening. So that performance of the application page improves a lot. Other features and React ecosystem. It supports server-side rendering. React now supports server-side rendering also. So the application is rendered, server-side rendering means the application is rendered on the server side rather than in the browser, thus increasing performance and fast page reloading. So server-side rendering also increases SEO optimization. Supports mobile app development through React Native. React Native lets you build mobile apps using only JavaScript. So a React Native app is a real mobile app and not just a web app running on mobile devices. Using React only JavaScript, you can still build very powerful mobile applications using React Native. Thousands of mobile applications are built using React Native. For example, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Skype, and many more. React Router is a widely used JavaScript library designed to enable client-side routing in React applications. What does client-side routing mean? It is nothing but in a nav bar, when you click on a button, you would like to navigate from one page to the other page. So in order to navigate from one page to other page, in order to navigate between multiple pages, this React Router library helps us in handling this routing in React very easily. So it allows developers to create single page applications with multiple views or pages inside a single page, providing a seamless navigation experience without requiring full page reloads. Centralized state management libraries, Flux, Redux Toolkit. Now these libraries maintain the entire application state at one central place. These libraries implement unidirectional flow, which makes it easier for how data flow happens throughout the app. For example, now this is your user interface. Okay, through an action, a middleware is initiated, and from that middleware, the data is updated in the store, and from that store, the new data updates are again shared back to the user interface. So this is how the unidirectional data flow is maintained using this Redux library. So in order to become a professional React developer, you need to know the following. You need to know the basics of components, what are components, how to create them, and how to make them reusable components. JSX. You need to know how to use UI libraries like MUI, Chakra UI, Hero UI, or any one of these libraries, and also, or if possible, if required, some of the CSS frameworks like Tailwind CSS. So JSX forms the key of React development. So you need to know how to use this JSX, where you write all your HTML and CSS within this JSX. Okay. So entire page layout, page design, everything happens inside this JSX. You need to know the concept of state and props. So how to manage application state and data. State is nothing but a data which changes in the application. So you know, in an application, data is not always constant, it continuously changes. So you need to know how to handle this changing data in an application. And also you need to know how to share data from parent component to different component or from one component to other component. React router. You need to know how to use React router to enable client-side routing in React applications with multiple views or pages, providing a seamless navigation experience without requiring full page reloads. You need to know how to handle centralized state management using Redux Toolkit. Redux Toolkit is the most powerful library and the must-used library in almost all the React applications where MNCs develop their applications. Okay, so you need to know how to place the entire application state at one centralized store and share it across different components. So you need to know how to integrate Redux Toolkit in your React application and use it seamlessly. You need to know how to upload images and videos to server from your React application. You need to know how to handle login authentication, that is registering a user, logging a user, etc. You need to know handling user dashboards and any other dashboard and creating protected routes. So protected routes are nothing but once a user logs in to dashboard, only if he is logged in, you should be given access to the dashboard. If he is not logged in, you are not supposed to give access to the dashboard. So you need to check for his proper credentials and then provide access to the dashboard. So providing access to this dashboard based on your credentials is called as protected routes. So dashboard has its own routes. So that all those dashboards are nothing but mostly it will be protected routes. So you need to know how to protect routes from unauthorized access. Okay. Then you need to know the basic CRUD operations. Here in CRUD, C stands for create. So you need to know how to handle forms and form data and send it to server to store in database. You need to know how to connect to server APIs to fetch data and display it in your app. You need to know how to update any data fetched from the server and send it back to the server and update the data in the DB. And you also need to know how to delete any data if required from the database from your React application. So in order to become a professional React developer, you need to know how to handle all these things. You need to know the components, JSX, state and props, React router, centralized state management, uploading images and videos, authentication strategies, login authentication, okay, handling user dashboards and protecting user dashboards, and also handling all the CRUD operations. And might be, if required, based on your application, there can be some other concepts which you might have to know. But these are some of the basic things you need to know to become a professional React developer. Now, at Mohansh Technologies, we provide our 100% job guarantee React developer program. The duration is for 2 months and interview prep project is for 2 months. So total in 4 months, we will train you in such a way that you become a professional React developer and ensure that you land in a dream job. Okay, we provide you all the assistance support till you get placed. Features of our training program. Now our training program is completely different from what training programs offer elsewhere in other places. Ours is a learn by working. So what does learn by working mean? Once you join the program, within 1 week or 10 days, once you become familiar with the basic concepts, you will be given a project to start working on from second week or third week onwards. So every candidate will be given a project or a group of students will be made to work together on a single project. Okay. like 3 or 4 students will be combined together to work on a project. Now, as you learn the React concepts, like once you understand how to create components, then you will be working on your project as an assignment to create the pages, okay? To create the React pages as per the layout or design provided to you. Okay, the project can be a social networking app, or it can be a movie making app, or it can be a ticket booking app, or it can be an e-commerce app. We can choose any app, but the agenda or the motivation behind building this app is to ensure that you are having a working environment while learning it. So, workspace atmosphere and learning. So, what does this workspace atmosphere and learning means? As I said, 4 or 5 students or 3 or 4 students would be grouped together to work on a single project. So, we would like to create a working place atmosphere, means ensure that you feel as if you are working in an organization right from day one. We ensure you that you get that motivation as if you are working on a project directly. So, you are learning and implementing the concept by working on the project. We will ensure that you master skills with real-time work and concepts. So, whatever the concept you are given, you learn, you will be working on your project. So, by implementing it in your project, you will automatically master the skills with real-time work and all these real-time concepts. We will also give you some other challenges or assignments so that you can practice till you become master. We also provide you with some real-time coding challenges which will improve your coding skills, React conceptual skills, and React understanding skills, React architectural skills. We provide you 100% job placement assistance. In other words, we provide you 100% job guarantee also, provided you fulfill all the 5 points that I have explained before, like you work on the project honestly, practice all the skills and concepts till you master them, and all these things, so that we can assure you 100% job guarantee. We'll make you prepare for the interview. So 100% interview preparation would be done from the 3rd month onwards, where again you'll be working on a new project from scratch with various again coding challenges. So by the end of the 4th month, we will ensure that you are 100% placed. Okay. So dedicated placement support will be provided to you till you land in your dream job. It's not that by end of the 4th month you could not be placed, so we are not going to take care of you. We are going to take care of you till you are 100% placed in a job. Okay. Thank you. So for further details, contact us at Mohansh Technologies, flat number 302, 3rd floor, Namdev Block, Prime Hospital Lane, Amirpet, Hyderabad 38. So mobile number 95446546 8121 557753. Email info@mohanchtechnologies.com. Thank you. All the best to all of you, and all the best to all of you, and may God bless you, that every one of you have a bright future and a bright career and land in your dream job. Thank you, friends.